So the biggest issue for food and labour, I think for me, is inequality. And I mean in different forms. So inequality between people in the developed world and the developing world, the forms of labour that people are engaged in those different contexts, and how those conditions are very different, and the different factors at play in shaping that. But also the inequality between the inequalities of power. So the limitations placed on consumers in terms of reshaping the food system, although as consumers we're asked to be responsible in making the right choices about our food, actually our knowledge and our ability to influence the food system is very limited. It's confined to the amount of money we've got with which to purchase these consumables, but also our ability to interpret the labels and make sense of the labour processes behind that. Even with fair trade, for example, as we heard in one of the talks today, there's no guarantee that that's fair trade, really. We're being asked to try and make responsible decisions, but actually interpreting what's put in front of us is very difficult for consumers. That's certainly one of the major challenges, I think. Are academics engaged with this issue? I mean, in a sense, we all are, because I think that's the wonderful thing about food, is that we are all forced to interact with it on a very regular daily basis. So there's a level of engagement with food, and I think that's actually its great potential, is that it has this power to kind of really mobilise change because of the extent of how central it is to our lives, really. But I don't think that academics are necessarily as engaged as they could be in terms of driving change in the food system. I think quite often we tend to take quite a remote, removed perspective that's often not connected to things that are going on in social movements around food and consumer actions, but also union actions and actions by workers who are in a sense working on the same problems, but from an activist perspective, or from a sort of everyday perspective. And if academics could provide some of the kind of clarity in terms of outlining, what the real nature of these problems are in the food system, but also that kind of help in thinking about how to respond to those problems, then I think that's where they could really engage with it more. I think civil society has got to try and, use the resources that are there in terms of the academics who are looking at these issues, use them to make their case stronger and to put pressure on governments, political actors, corporate actors, and spread that message with consumers. If we're going to build up a critical mass to actually change the food system, then everyone has to be engaged in it. And civil society organisations work as the real kind of networking organisation that can pull all these different groups together in terms of political actors, academics, consumers, the general public. They can kind of bring it all together, but it's just to encourage them really to make use of academic resources, I suppose. As academics, we're constantly being told about the need to make our work high impact. And so this is a wonderful opportunity in the food system to work with civil society organisations to drive change.